my name is Fernando Garza. I am coming to you with a documentary on the moral treatment of insane asylum patients emerging in the 1800s. Also, I would like to shed some light on why that topic is important today in the treatment of patients. But before we begin, I would like to ask the question to the class of what comes to mind when you think of an insane person. Before the emergence of the moral treatment, there has always been a negative stigma surrounding the mentally ill. The religious community believed that demons have possessed the bodies. Others believed in hexes and voodoos casted by witchcraft. Nonetheless, today we still think of the mentally ill in a negative light, either as criminals or a menace to our society. In darker medical days, patients that suffered from mental diseases were left to rot in asylums, with dim probabilities of rehabilitation. During this time, unorthodox and extreme procedures were experimented on the mentally ill. Bloodletting and purging were common methods of treating many illnesses. Many of these individuals suffering from mental illnesses were treated subhuman, in many cases treated like barren animals. Improper remedies were often used on the mentally ill with little success. However, many believed in these treatments as cures. In the newspaper article from the Manchester Guardian from 1839, the author correlates suicidal tendencies with intestinal irritation acting upon the brain. The author goes on to give the reader an example of Damien, who was suffering from suicidal thoughts and was magically cured after purging and bloodletting. Thankfully, these methods were ridiculed by modern medical thinkers like Philip Pinel and Dorothea Dix, just to name a few. Both Pinel and Dix helped pave way to the modernization of the asylums. The idea of the moral treatment was successfully implemented by these pioneers. So what exactly is the moral treatment, you may ask? The moral treatment is the humane treatment of patients, treating these patients with care, love, patience, instead of the chains and violence. Giving the patients fresh air and space really helps their recovery. These medical pioneers believed that mental illness was curable by creating a personal bond between the patient and the doctor. Pinel goes on to write a book on the moral treatment. In his book, Pinel subjects an individual who suffers from depression. Pinel explains how the individual could have been saved if the moral treatment was implemented to the full extent. He goes on to say, "At those times of deep sorrow, I invite him to accompany me to the fields, and after walking for some time and conversing together upon subjects likely to console or amuse him, he appears to recover the enjoyment of his existence." Now, the moral treatment is a common practice. However, there are some authors and scholars that oppose the movement. Author Michael Foucault describes the moral treatment as a new form of oppression of the human rights and liberties. Foucault reinforces that psychological chains are just as harmful as physical chains of the early insane asylums. Foucault chants that patients are being manipulated by fear and anxiety in order to maintain order in asylums today. If Foucault's ideologies carry any truth, what do the doctors gain from the oppression of their patients? His idea would mean overcrowded asylums, which would be extra work for the doctors. The bones of the moral treatment are alive in the communal health movement as well as in the therapeutic community in today's society. Scholar Russell Sprufkin in 1977 focused on advocating the community health movement in a sense of a rebirth of the moral treatment in the medical field. He goes on to say, schools were established in many of the asylums in the United States and Europe. Indeed, in a real sense, that schools become the model of moral treatment. Sprufkin stressed that a sense of community with the asylums will ultimately benefit the outcome of the patients. The idea is to eradicate the institutional system in order to move forward Education is the core to the communal health movement thought out by Sprufkin. Education was at the very core of moral treatment. Within the well-ordered asylum is clear. Rationality, self-control, discipline, and mental stimulation were the shared ideals of education in general and moral treatment in particular. So, in conclusion, one can see why the discovery of the moral treatment is so important to us in today's society. Patients just get better under positive stimulation. This will conclude the documentary. I thank you for watching.